Hello, I'm State Representative Jeff McClain from the 82nd House District. Welcome to Ohio in Focus.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Ohio in Focus, a program that brings state government to you. I'm your host, Mike Ditto. We have with us today State Representative Jeff McClain, who serves the 82nd House District, which includes all of Wyandotte and Crawford counties and a portion of Marion County, including the city of Marion. Representative McClain, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
So you are currently in your second term as state representative. You finished 2 years in the minority and you've completed the first year in the majority. Tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to the legislature.
Certainly. Well, I spent 26 and a half years as a county auditor in Wyandotte County. It was a great experience. It gave me a really good base for what we're dealing with down here, especially in the time that we're in.
Sure.
I really came to the House. I had been recruited a couple of times over the years, and I always talk about being a family man, and I couldn't do that if I had kids at home. So
Certainly.
I put them off, and people talk about term limits a lot, but for me that gave me an opportunity. I had a friend that was my predecessor, and he had kind of been recruiting me along the line, and it was a good time, and we've really it's been an exciting 3 years.
I'm sure it has. How's your family adapted to the change of you being in Columbus?
Well, as I say, they're older now. Actually, 2 of them are married. We actually have 3 little granddaughters.
Oh, congratulations. That's great.
Thank you. Our youngest is at Ohio State. She's a freshman there. So it's more really my wife as I'm away a little bit, and maybe that makes less of a mess at home. So maybe she's a little happier that way, too.
That's right.
So.
Well, since you were obviously recruited and sought the position, what ultimately inspired you to run? Was there one issue in your district that your district was facing that you thought that you could bring some real change to Columbus in that regard? Or were there a number of things that you wanted to take a look at while down here?
Well, I think it's everything involved. I didn't have one specific issue that I was down here about, but it was just the fact of what God has done in my life, the way He's prepared me, and it was just an opportunity to come down and try to do the right thing to make Ohio better for families, and we've been doing a lot of that.
The Speaker obviously has the distinction of appointing members to various House committees. Perhaps you could tell your constituents what committees you serve on currently.
Sure. I am on the Finance Committee, which obviously deals with the budget and all those other deals. I am the chairman of the Health and Human Services Subcommittee of Finance, which deals with 60 to 65% of the state budget. That is an area we're doing a lot of the work that's helping especially our neediest citizens, but we're making sure that we're doing it in a way that it's going to make it much more efficient and really give the taxpayer a break too. I'm also on Ways and Means, which deals with the revenue side of government, and I'm also on the transportation, public safety, homeland security, and there's a lot of different issues we deal with that. I'm also on the Fatherhood Commission and a number of other smaller things, but we're busy.
You're busy. Sounds like you're very busy.
Yes.
Back to the state budget that you mentioned. In your subcommittee and on the Finance Committee as a whole, the state was looking at a very difficult budget, one that gained state and national headlines for what we had to do as a House of Representatives. Tell us a little bit about what your committee did and what the budget experience was like.
Well, obviously it was very intense. As you say, we had a little over $8 billion hole in the budget of a $55 billion budget. We had to fix that without raising taxes. We've done a very good job at that. We've done a great deal with Medicaid. And it's been in the middleman. In fact, there was an editorial in the Dispatch not too long ago that said that we have helped actually the neediest citizens. We didn't hurt our neediest citizens as we did this. It has the budget as it came out has been tough because there's only so many dollars and they've got to go certain places. Sure. But what we've done is we've dealt with the Medicaid with those areas, and that's about 45% of the state budget. So if we can make some efficiencies, do things better, that's where we saved a lot of dollars. We're actually continuing that process as we go forward now. We're having conversations with a lot of the folks and getting everybody involved, all the stakeholders, so we're coming up with some great ideas. So we're going to be able to do more there. We actually did away with the estate tax, which some people will call the death tax. A lot of the things we did in the budget, we were trying to make sure that we're creating an environment that businesses want to come to Ohio. And as you've seen in the news recently, there's been a lot of that happening. It is working, but those are things that take time. We've done a lot of other things with education. We actually have given more state dollars to the schools than they did in the last budget. That has not been told very often, but that's something that was done. We actually have merit pay is involved now with the teachers, so your best teachers are going to be rewarded. That's something. It's we are a country that likes to have competition, and it brings the best out of us. So that's something that happens. The bottom line is that we had to make the tough decisions. Somebody had to be the adult at the table and say that this is what we've got, this is how we're going to do it. And I think we did a good job with that.
And you touched on jobs and the economy as part of the global themes of the budget. Do you feel that in your House district that is still the #1 issue facing your constituents?
Oh, without a doubt. There have been improvements. Recently, I think in the district-wide, we're about 1.1% less in unemployment, so it's getting better. But we still got a lot of folks out there that are struggling, either unemployed or underemployed, and we want to make sure that we're doing the things, and I think that we are, that are going to bring those jobs in, because we know that if people come back to work, it makes everything better. We have a better tax base, we have less people that we have to help. Everything just becomes much, much better.
Before the budget was introduced and passed by the legislature last year, there were a couple of other bills that were introduced and voted on by the House and the Senate. Among them, House Bill 1, Jobs Ohio, and House Bill 2, otherwise known as Senate Bill 4, which established the performance audits of the state agencies. What was your involvement in those bills, and what did you think about their content?
Well, I'm supportive of both of them, and actually they came through our committees, so we had a lot of input with them. A lot of folks did. Let's take the first one, Jobs Ohio.
Sure.
That is something that the governor has really been pushing, and we've gone along with it because it is trying to make sure that we are doing everything we can to make Ohio a state where businesses want to come or stay, and it has been happening. We had an announcement just yesterday about Honda and some other things that are going on. It is set up to be much more responsive to the needs. We've heard the horror stories that people would come and have a problem, and in the previous administration, they didn't get back to them for 6 months, if ever. That's not the case any longer. We actually have Director Mark Kwame coming up to Marion County here in a couple of weeks. We're going to have him look at some areas. The old Army Depot there, we've got some wonderful things going on there. So this is really helping to do that, because the jobs that are coming in are very good jobs, and it's just going to make Ohio a better place. Now, the second one is the performance audits. We all know, this was one of the things that as a county auditor for all those years, you'd always ask people, why do you do that? Well, that's the way we've always done it. Well, that's not a valid answer any longer. We've got a lot of opportunities to do things. Technology has changed how things happen. There are people doing things better. So this is a way to do that. The performance audits are going to be on the Department of Education, Department of Transportation, Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, and it's the Ohio Housing Finance Authority. Those are the first group that are going to be done. And really what a performance audit does is other people come in and look, and they'll say that we think that you could be doing this better, and here's why. It's not a hatchet job. They're going to come in, they're going to tell you, this is where we think you can make improvements. And as public servants, we should be looking at that, and we should be doing everything we can to make sure that those taxpayer dollars are spent as wisely as they can.
I've spent some time talking to some of your colleagues on this program about small businesses and how small businesses in Ohio create 70% of the jobs. One of the things that was passed this year was the Common Sense Initiative, which you supported. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Well, it really is. It wants to make, as you say, common sense. We want to get a balance of regulations. We have to have an opportunity to make sure that we're protecting our citizens. We have to make sure that there's a balance, though, that it doesn't go overboard, because it can. So what this does is it really sets it up. You're going to be able to look at regulations, and it makes it much easier to make action, to take action on those and change them if they're creating problems. So that's another thing that we're trying to do, just to make things a better atmosphere, because as you said, government doesn't create the jobs.
Right.
It's the small business owners, it's the other folks, and we need to make sure we have that balance, but we need to make sure that we give them every opportunity they can to compete.
You had a press conference towards the end of 2011 regarding a bill that you've introduced, House Bill 326, with, I think, Representative Brian Hill. Tell your constituents a little bit about that bill and what you aim to do if passed.
Sure, and that was the press conference actually included Secretary of State Houston and Auditor of State Dave Yost. It's very simple and straightforward. We want to make sure that we protect taxpayer dollars. There was a situation where an entity, an agency, was using taxpayer dollars to pass a levy. You can't do that. In most places in campaign finance, that's already laid out that there would be some kind of accountability. In this one, there was not. So House Bill 326, which is what it is, would just simply make it a fifth-degree misdemeanor if you do that, if you knowingly do that, to make sure that those taxpayer dollars are used for the purpose that it's there, not to maybe get a levy passed and do other things. There are other ways to do that. It's been very popular. It passed almost unanimously. There were a couple of folks that didn't, but it's a good bill. Actually, we're going to be testifying on it in the Senate this afternoon. So hopefully it'll become law very soon.
You had a busy year in 2011. You've had a busy time since you've been state representative. What are some things that you're looking at or thinking about moving forward through 2012? What will be your main focus?
Well, obviously, I think especially with my assignments, it's going to be the finance side. We've got to get these folks back to work. We've got to make Ohio a place, and indications are that we're heading in the right direction. But we need to continue that. So we're going to continue to deal in our subcommittee with Medicaid, with some of those other areas. We're going to try to make sure that we spend our dollars as well as we can. We are going to continue to work with the local governments to protect them. That was a big thing I did last year. We dealt with them. We know they were going to get less dollars, so we were trying to give them opportunities. Senate Bill 5 was one of those. We tried to give them some tools to manage. That's going to continue. We're going to be looking at different ways to help them. But it's the whole situation is one where when you talk to the manufacturers, when you talk to the business owners, they want to have a reason for hope. And if we get that going, then they're going to be willing to spend dollars and go forward. So that's what we're going to continue to do, and it's going to be jobs, jobs, jobs. Because as I said before, that's the thing that, if everybody's working, the more people get back to work, everything gets much easier. So that's going to be our main responsibility, and there'll be other things we deal with, but that's what we've got to do. We've got to help get everybody back to work.
In the 3 years that you've been here, what have you found to be the most enjoyable part about being a state legislator?
I actually think it's a lot of the constituent work. We've been able to do a lot of wonderful things. We're doing things down here, and those are good in the long run, but the feel-good things sometimes are the ones. We had a family in Crawford County where you had some grandparents, the children were taken away from the parents. They were in foster care. The grandparents couldn't get them, couldn't get to take care of them. All we had to do was get involved a little bit and say, hey, you want to look at this, and they got them. So just things like that. Yeah. So sometimes you're able to really help families, because I'm a grandfather myself. Those grandparents are going to love those kids a lot more than the foster parents were. And we know that's going to help them in the long run too. So it's just things like that. But also the opportunity to do a lot of good work here. A lot of the things we did last year weren't necessarily popular, but they had to be done because we had that hole, and it had just been kicked down the road too long. And as I said before, sometimes you just need an adult in the room.
Given the busyness of the past year and your time here, would you say that there is a typical day that you have, and if so, maybe you could tell your constituents a little bit about what that typical day is, if there is one?
Well, they'll tend to follow a little bit, but they're very busy, as you know. When we're here, the leadership does a great job making sure we're not wasting time. So we have our committee work, we have all kinds of other things, and people don't realize that they think that all we do it may be on the House of the floor, and that's an hour and a half or 2 hours a day for a couple days a week. Well, there's a lot of hours that go in before that. You have all the committee work, you have all the stakeholder meetings, all the work that we put in to make sure we understand what's going on with those bills. But it's very busy. It's something that our staff is, whether it's our legislative aides or the caucus staff, is great, because there is only so much that we can do in a day, and they really help us to make sure that we know what we need to know.
There's only a few seconds left here. What is the best way for your constituents to get in touch with you, either in your district or here in Columbus? Well,
certainly they can call us at 614-644-6265, or they can email us at district@ohr.state.oh.us, or they can call me at home. I'm in the book.
Oh, very good.
Back in the district.
Very good.
We're around, and it's a very rewarding job, and it's something that I take very seriously.
Well, Representative McClain, thank you for joining us on the program today. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
And hopefully you'll come back after maybe the next 6 months or so when time permits. Hopefully you'll come back and tell us what's going on with your district.
I'd be glad to.
Very good. And thanks to all of you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again here on the next edition of Ohio in Focus, the program that brings state government to you. Thanks again for joining us.